This is a video for 10th French grammar. Today we are looking at the sentence structures which will help you in the MCQ type question. This is the third part of the three-part series on tenses. Please make sure that you have watched and understood the 8 tenses which have been covered in the previous 2 videos before you watch this one. Now, as I've been explaining the different tenses to you, after each tense I've given you a set of clue words which help you to decide when to use that particular tense. So besides those clue words, what I'm doing with you right now, which are the sentence structures which will also help you to decide which tense is right in case you cannot find a particular clue word in the MCQ question. This is the simplest structure. Whenever you see an opening which uses the verb devoir, vouloir, pouvoir, which has been conjugated in the present tense, or if you see an expression like il faut, which means it is necessary to, you have to use the full verb. Don't make the mistake of conjugating the verb once you see devoir, vouloir, pouvoir already conjugated for you. The verb simply has to be inserted in its infinitive form, that is the full form. So you can see the examples for you here on the screen. Devoir is devoir conjugated, so écrire comes as it is. Ver is vouloir conjugated, acheter will come as it is. Pouvons is pouvoir conjugated, so enseigner will retain its infinitive form. After il faut, you have to retain the verb in its infinitive. So aider remains aider. Don't make the mistake of conjugating the verb after you see a verb like vouloir, pouvoir, devoir already conjugated in the sentence. The verb remains the same. The second structure is when you see the sentence starting with C and then you have a verb in the present tense. Then the next verb has to be in the future tense, the simple future, that is not the future proche. So look at the first example. Si j'ai le temps. Si is if, A is avoir in the present. Therefore the next verb has to be in the future tense. So iré is aller in the future. If I have the time, I will go to the bank. S'il fait beau, nous ferons une promenade. If the weather is good, that is the present tense, we will go for a walk. Will go is in the future tense. Now it can also be switched around. If the C plus present clause comes as the second clause of the sentence, it's the same thing. It's just that the future clause comes first. So don't get confused. The moment you see C and present tense next to each other, you know that the other verb in the sentence has to be in the simple future. Whether it comes at the start or at the end is not important. As long as C and the present are in the same clause, the other clause has to have the simple future tense. In a similar way, whenever you have a C plus imparfait clause, you have to use the conditional in the other clause. This is where the conditional comes into play. There is no separate use for this except when you have a C plus imparfait clause, the other clause has to be in the conditional. Similar to the previous slide, if the C plus imparfait clause comes second, you don't need to panic. It is the same thing. The conditional will have to come first. As long as C and imparfait are together, the other verb has to be in the conditional. So si j'avais le temps, if I had the time, which is the imparfait, I would go to the bank. Irai is in the conditional. S'il faisait beau, nous ferions une promenade. If the weather was good, we would go for a walk. Don't make the mistake of confusing up the previous slide and this slide. Learn it properly that it is C present future and the other one is C imparfait conditional. Okay, the previous two structures started with C, that was if. Now this is the fourth and the last structure which starts with quand. So when you have a clause containing quand and the passé composé, PC there's passé composé, then the other clause, the subordinate clause, has to be in the imparfait. So quand il est entré, sa femme dormait. When he entered, his wife was sleeping. Quand le portable a sonné, nous dansions. When the phone rang, we were dancing. Now just as the previous two cases, if the quand plus passé composé clause is in the second part of the sentence, there's no need to panic. It's the same thing. As long as the con and passé composé is in one clause, the other clause, be it at the start of the sentence or at the end of the sentence, has to be in the imparfait. Now it's time for me to solve some practice questions with you. This is how it will appear for the MCQ type question on tenses. You are not given the full verb, neither are you given which tense you have to conjugate it in. You are simply given three options and your job is to decide which one is the best fit for the question. So in the first one, you can clearly see the C plus present structure. So the answer, the subordinate clause, has to be in the simple future. So it is recevrez. Then the second one, there is a clue word there. Can you figure it out? Yep, it's the last one, last word there, demain, which is tomorrow. Therefore, the second sentence, the verb will also be in the future, which is seront. Sommes is the present, as you know. Étions is the imparfait. The third one, there is another clue here, which is chaque weekend. This is something that is happening on a regular basis, so you have to use the simple present tense. It would be now. The first two options both are the simple present tense, so time to look at the subject and decide which one is appropriate. Mes parents is the third person plural, so you would have to take the second option. ENVOI, on voit. And the last one, in 2010, which is something that happened in the past. Therefore, you would have to use the passé composé, which is very obvious from these three options. It's the first one because the passé composé has two words. The other tenses have only one word. So the fourth answer would be und which is the passé composé for avoir. So in this manner, you have to be a little smart about it and figure out which of the options is the best fit for the question given to you. Okay, it's time to look at our purple slide for the exercise. Pause the video, solve it. Okay, apply the things that you have learned, not only how to form the different tenses, but the clue words and also the sentence structures, and you will not find this difficult. Pause the video here and you will get the answers on the next slide. There is another slide with questions, so you will get the answers to both these slides in the following two slides. I hope you have understood this topic on verbs and tenses because this carries quite a large chunk of your marks of the grammar sections. Please revise it well. Merci. Thank you very much.